We're live. Welcome everybody to the Semrush Influencer Marketing Webinar. My name is Andy Crestadina. I'm the co-founder of Orbit Media Studios. I'm in Chicago. It's a little chilly here, but I'm excited and I have a warm coffee and a warm feeling inside because we have a pro with us today. He said yes, so we got him. We booked him. He's here for us. He's here for you. We have Marcus Sheridan, the sales lion. Marcus Sheridan himself is joining us today, and he's going to share all kinds of insights and approaches and stories, good and bad, about influencer marketing from both angles. How to grow your influence if you're interested in becoming an influencer yourself, how to work with influencers if this is a tactic or a tool that you use to increase awareness and trust. Marcus, welcome.
It's great to be here. You know, I was actually in Chicago yesterday. I flew in late last night back from Chicago. I was teaching a sales training yesterday there to this group that has just been killing it over the course of 7 years since the first time I saw them. So great. I'm so glad that we're going to talk about something that I actually never really talk about, which is influencer marketing. Gives me a chance to make fun of people, including myself. That's a beautiful thing.
How could you not have been? Don't people ask you about this? You were like the original. You're in my mind, and I mean, they didn't call it that back then.
Just a pool guy.
No, you have influenced, with a small I, lowercase I, by any definition. You have been an extremely influential person for so many of us, bridging the gap between marketing and sales, which is critically important. I don't know that you even described it at the time, but this way. But it was PR. You had these huge, just genius PR moves back in the day, and then style plus substance. You have wowed audiences from the biggest stages that I've ever seen in this world, and on any marketing conference. So, give us a little background.
Yeah, and let me just say something to that. I think. In full transparency, people say, how did you get to this point? And wherever I am, if there's one thing that I would owe it to is because I've never tried to sound smart. And I think sometimes when we hear this word influencers, we think we're supposed to sound smart, and that's not the idea. What we're supposed to do is induce understanding from the masses. And this is why, for so long, instead of using, let's say, for example, the word content marketing, I said, let's just obsess over our customers' questions. It's a very different way of interpreting it. But the way that it was understood by audiences, it resonated, especially with CEOs and sales teams. And that's who we had to win over. We didn't have to win over the marketers. They were already, eating the dog food. The problem is everybody else within organizations. Okay, so my quick story. So I started as a pool guy in 2001 out of college. How did I become a pool guy? I just didn't have another job. Was looking around. My two buddies had just started a swimming pool company. They said, hey, Marcus, will you join us? I joined them. And shortly thereafter, they said, hey, why don't you become the third partner of the business? So it was called River Pools and Spas. We started really small, and we pushed really hard to grow it. And we grew it up until about 2008, 2009. When the market hit the total fan and things went really bad, really fast, and I was really close to filing bankruptcy in 2008. And during this time, and that's the beauty behind stress and pain, right, Andy, is it forces us to do things that we've never done before because they might have been too uncomfortable. And so it was during this time that I started to read these fancy phrases that had just been bubbling to the surface, like inbound marketing, content marketing, social, digital, all this stuff. But what I heard in my simple pool guy mind was, Marcus, if you just obsess over your customers' questions and you're willing to address them openly and transparently on your website, whether they're good, bad, or ugly, you just might save your swimming pool business. And so that's what we did. We embraced a philosophy that today is known as They Ask You Answer. And to make a long story short, it got traction, and it really, really exploded the traffic, ultimately the leads and the sales for the company. We became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. Today, we get about 750,000 visitors a month. We became the largest builder of fiberglass pools in the U.S. I'm still a silent partner. It went so well that we had to manufacture fiberglass pools as well so that we could serve all of these people that wanted to do business with us that were outside of our area. But as this was all happening, and I started seeing the success, I started to write about it. And I started this really simple blog called The Sales Line in 2009. and nobody really listened for the first year, but I kept talking about what I was doing and some of the stuff that that I was working on. And suddenly somebody said, hey, can you speak at my event? And somebody said, hey, can you teach us how to do that thing? And hey, this is really resonating with us, Marcus. And it started to snowball. It really snowballed after Content Marketing World, the first one, which we've talked about, Andy, you and me a little bit, might address it today. And now I get to speak around the world full time. It's what I do. I own an agency. The agency has since been renamed Impact, and we have about 60 some employees. And so we have so many amazing case studies now of people that did exactly what we did at River Pools, because I wanted to show the world it ain't just about pools. It's about you and your business, because these are philosophies and principles. That's the quick story.
You're exactly right that you make it accessible and that you're not talking over people's heads or using fancy words, because you summarize the industry in 4 words. They ask, you answer.
Yes.
That's kind of the core.
Yeah, and it's so very easy, because I've had so many people say to me, and I don't say this as a brag, it's just true. They'll come to me and say, I heard a talk on content marketing, Marcus, a month ago, and now I just heard yours, and it finally makes sense. And it's because marketers have a massive problem. They speak like marketers, and then they wonder why they can't get buy-in. Do you realize the number one issue that I've received over the course of these 8 or 9 years of writing and talking about this stuff, Andy, isn't, hey, Marcus, how do I get more traffic, leads, and sales? Right? It's, Marcus, I'm so frustrated because I believe in this stuff, but I can't seem to get sales. I can't seem to get management to buy in. That's the number one email. In other words, talking about influencers, we can't influence our internal organizations well enough, and it's because of a lack of education. It's not because they're just hard-headed, mean people. It's because they're ignorant, and they're ignorant because we haven't educated and taught them well enough, and because we're speaking like marketers, not like salespeople or not like business owners.
I've got, my head is filling with ideas and questions for you. We're going to run out of time before you know it. I'd love to talk to you about how you need to answer questions of internal stakeholders, which would be a cool topic. But first, I want to continue that part of the Marcus story into the tiny Andy chapter in the Marcus story.
Yeah, when we first met.
Yes,
that moment.
Which you have to admit it wasn't a major moment for you. I was excited to approach you, and it was kind of this hesitation, like, that's Marcus, he's right there at that table. So this would have been the 3rd Content Marketing World, because it was back in Cleveland. I was at the 2nd Content Marketing World when you gave that keynote on the main stage in Columbus, Ohio. Yep. But then we were both in Cleveland, and it was an after party. I think it was like an 80s themed after party. And I had this weird idea. This is an influencer marketing case study. So I go to a conference. How can I meet everybody at this conference, including all of my heroes and hopeful future collaborators? I have it with me. This is going to go one day into the Content Marketing Museum. I bought an orange notebook, and orange is the theme color of that event. And I wrote on it, my Content Marketing World Yearbook. The instructions are, write something, advice or hello, add your info, name, Twitter, link, and have Andy take your picture. And I literally just, with this as my, it's $1.50, right? As my yearbook, I got 160 different people to write in my yearbook, just random notes. And so this was how I approached you, and you looked at me like I was crazy, and then you smiled and you signed my yearbook. So it was great for my network. It's how I first met Marcus, everybody, and it was just a fun. We didn't even call it influencer marketing at that time, because this would have been, I don't know what year that was. The 3rd one?
That might have been called Making Friends.
Making Friends, which we'll come back to. I think that's the main point. But it was a tactic. I knew that I was doing this as like a networking and relationship building tool, this notebook. Yes. And I have for you now, I'm going to share it. I'm going to share my screen here. This silly thing that I did at the time. I have for you the actual final version of this, which was a lot of work. I had to go into my phone, take everyone's picture, overlay the picture onto a scan of the notebook, and then made it like this giant PDF or slideshow that went in this article called How to Meet Everybody at a Conference. And so this is you. That's you in that moment. This is like that moment when I met you. That was you, your face right then at the time. You look exactly the same. Do you love my content marketing? Yes or no? I hope you said yes. You wrote it just like a high school kid. Like you played off the yearbook theme perfectly. So I'm actually going to turn this into a repeatable process. My advice to everyone and ways to use networking and creating structure and programs to be able to meet everybody. Because as we know, it's not just, as they always say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's obviously BS. What's important is what you know and it's who you know. I'm going to say the two biggest factors in success. It's your network and your knowledge, right? So knowledge plus networking is success. Now, Marcus, you and I both love that it's effective in this way, right? There's sources of knowledge such as live events, informal education, books, videos. There's networking opportunities such as live events and degree programs and social media. But there's something specific that I don't hear about enough I want to go into just briefly, and then I'm going to ask you a bit of what you think of this. The idea of the mastermind group. So yeah, get out there, go to events. Events are great for networking and knowledge. Events are how I met. We have a lot of mutual friends, including there's Ann Handley, and Andrea and Heidi and lots of people that you know. There's Dina and Tom. So, but it's how I met Ann. And Ann, I'm so grateful, said yes to speak at our conference last year. She was the keynote at our conference. There's Ann at the front of the room for Content Jam, the conference we do once a year. But the mastermind group is a unique opportunity. Here's the definition. It's a peer-to-peer mentoring concept where members help solve each other's problems by giving input and advice from other members. It's a Napoleon Hill, it was an old book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, where he said that every mind needs friendly contact with other minds for food and expansion for growth. So you can do these as virtual events. You can do these as face-to-face events. Sometimes they're like one member's in a hot seat, everyone helps them. Sometimes everyone goes in turn, talking in like a monthly thing. There's paid versions of this. It costs nothing if you do it yourself. So the idea is just to find people who are both experts on a topic. Marcus knows all about FAQ content and pitching at events and making great presentations. And they're willing to share. Marcus is generous and willing, and he's here with us today. So, but what we often can do, right, is use social media as a way to find these potential collaborators, influencers, mastermind members, and to be careful to find just the ones in my mind that are the content creators, because there's two kinds of people online. 1% of people make the internet. We are the content creators. We write stuff, Marcus's blog, Marcus's book, this format, this webinar. And here's a really specific thing I recommend. When you pay attention to who you're interacting with on social media, and are they a content creator, yes or no? Content creators are the ones who create content, therefore create links, therefore drive authority and future search rankings. But also, that filter is just helpful for your network. So here's my rule for who to connect with on LinkedIn. I connect with anybody in my industry, anywhere in the world. You're a marketer in Singapore, great, let's connect. Or anybody in Chicago in any industry at all. You sell real estate here in the city I live in, great, I'm going to accept that connection. So I want your input on this in a minute, but just to be a little more permissive in LinkedIn, I think is a good idea. I think it's good for your network. There's no downside. I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that. But specifically, it's those content creators that we like, right? They are the journalists, they are the editors, they're the authors, and of course the bloggers and the blog editors. So I'm not just using social media as a way to spam the internet and dump links online. I'm using social media as a way to build relationships with those people who create content. So I'm looking for those indirect benefits. Plus, what a mastermind group does for you is it creates that exclusivity. This is weird to me. Somehow it works. It's a human bias. Draw a circle, stand inside it, and tell someone that you've got a circle, and people will want to be in your circle. That's a very simple diagram. But exclusivity does that. I'm forming a group. I'm not inviting everyone, but I'm considering you for my group. Would you be interested in joining my group? So I think that's a helpful, useful thing about these groups. They should have a little structure so that there's one person who runs it. They take notes. And as a content marketer, I'm going to suggest to you a little agenda. This is a content marketing mastermind group agenda. We'll share these slides. Marcus, me, 6 other people are in a group. We're going to go around the virtual room and say, what are you doing that we can all promote? Link to, share, collaborate with. What are you doing that we can all collaborate on? What are you doing to be more productive in your job and in your day? And do I know anyone that you want to meet? Imagine if you took 4 or 5 other people, formed a group where you all got on a call and asked each other these questions once a month, what that would do for each of you. what that would do for your network, what that would do for your knowledge, what that would do for your reach, your awareness, your influence, your authority. Simple, right? Cost nothing. What are you doing that we can all help promote? What are you doing that we can all help create? How are you becoming more productive in your day? And do I know anyone that you want to meet? So that's my specific recommendation for you guys today. It's the idea of building that network, building that friendship. I'm in 2 of these groups myself right now. Very few people I know are leveraging this. Marcus, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is magical. Actually, spoken Vistage for a long time, and I've watched the power of peer-to-peer, and it goes beyond those 4. Those 4 is a great start, but there's a great saying which I think is so relevant, and it's too often disregarded by people as not being true, and I think it's outrageously, fundamentally true, and that is, you are the sum of your 5 closest friends.
Mm.
And generally speaking, when you look at a mastermind group, they are the friends that will call a spade when somebody needs to call a spade in your life. And for some reason, you're not listening to your family because you're too close to your family or whatever that thing is, or because you're too close to the situation, you can't see the forest through the trees. That mastermind group can do it for you, and then you galvanize a bond that for years, you will help feed each other, and it becomes that 1 + 1 = 3 phenomena. I've seen it again and again, right? And it's a beautiful thing. And to your point, it is underserved. But the idea is that you want to have people that are at or above your level, because if the people in your group are just, it doesn't mean you're superior. It just means you're at a different phase, right? And so you want people that are at your phase or above, so that you really lift each other up, and that everybody is giving to the group, and that nobody's requiring significant amounts of energy from it, because otherwise they're not a good fit.
Right. That's why it seems relevant to influencer marketing to me, is because people, when they do more organic influencer marketing or networking or content collaboration, that's what you're looking for, is people who can all offer that value to each other. And what you might think, I thought influencer marketing was about paying Instagram celebrities. We're bringing it way back from that. Just find people who you might consider, would you call these people micro-influencers, the candidates for a group like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, but the thing about it is, even with your story with the yearbook, Andy, what it made me think about is being very intentional. In other words, you can't just say, I'm going to go to a live event, or I'm going to go to this thing and hope to get something out of it. You actually had a clear strategy, very unique and goofy, fun little way for you to be to have a first impression, to make a connection with people. I did the exact same thing at the first. I am not naturally, people see me on stage and like, he is the ultimate extrovert, but I am extroverted with people that I know, not so much when I'm in a room of people I do not know, right? I don't love going up to people. And so I remember at the first content marketing world, I had this talk the next day that I had been given, and it was like this 20-minute talk, and I knew that I had to make the most of it. And so I intentionally went to a bunch of people that I had been reading online, met them face to face at the pre-party, and then I invited them to to my talk. And what was so wild about this, Andy, to make a long story made short, this was the best talk I've probably given my life. 20-minute talk, the room was fire, man. It was like everybody afterwards was ready to run through the walls, and all these people showed up, right? So Michael Stelzner showed up, and CC Chapman showed up, and Jay Baer was in the rooms. All these people were in the room. It was like, holy cow, this guy, he talks about this stuff differently, right? It was just a different vibe. And that night, they all said, why don't you come to dinner with us? And I remember being at the dinner. There's 12 people at the dinner. Everybody was a published author. And then there was the pool guy, right? And the next year, I ended up keynoting Content Marketing World because of the energy in that room. That was the highest rated talk. And I think it was because I saw these people that I loved and respected so much that had come to watch me after I'd gone out of my comfort zone to invite them. And it was just magic from that point on, many of which I'm still very close with.
That's so the things about that are relevant to anyone who wants to work with influencers. You went straight to face.
Yep.
Right. Which, so live events are magical for that reason. You went to the people that you knew had audiences, and you combined, right, that you had the right people in the right place at the right time, that key moment when Stelzner is like, oh, wow, yeah, I got to get this guy at my show. Or Joe says that he's going to be keynote next year. So it's the quality of the content, of course, which we kind of take for granted on this webinars, but we're assuming that content is of A+ quality, which yours, of course, is. But that was a great example of how that networking, that face-to-face, that outreach helped.
Andy, it's shocking to me how many people come up to me, after the fact, and they say something like, well, I saw you this one time at an event, and I just, for whatever reason, I was just like, he looks busy. People are talking to him. I don't want to interrupt him. And I know you experience the same thing as somebody that speaks, as somebody, that people follow, whatever that thing is. Like, that's so disappointing. Like, please stop me. Please talk to me. Tell me what's on your mind. I want to meet you. I don't want to just be with my speaking buddies that I see all the time. I want to talk to people and hear their issues and have real conversations. That's where the magic, that's where the ideas come from. That's very, very important. I don't think we leverage that nearly enough.
What you're saying, if I got this right, is that unless they're celebrities, I mean, influencers want to be approached.
They want to. Yes, they do. Absolutely, they do. And especially all the ones that I've met. Now, granted, I'm not hanging out with celebrities, but of all the ones that I've met in this industry, 99% really do want people to come up to them and have that conversation.
We never talk about celebrities on this show, so no one here is talking about celebrities. But what you said makes perfect sense to me, because they want to get the benefit of having that worked on their personal brand and that exposure value from that collaboration. Again, that filter, like I suggested on LinkedIn, connect with more people, but dropping, people are often surprised to learn just how approachable their fans are, and how grateful they would be to have someone come up and say a kind word, or to connect with them, or to offer to collaborate on a piece of content. I personally am thrilled to get any request to speak on someone's podcast, big or small, to work on an article, to contribute a quote. Why wouldn't I? It's an honor.
The only reason you wouldn't is if you forgot who you were before you were known at all, right? Because I remember the first 6 months, I just wanted somebody to comment on my stinking blog just one time. Like, just somebody, mom, dad, anybody, leave a comment on my stuff, right? And then you go from that to a point where eventually you're turning your nose up. Now, I mean, most people just don't become that person.
And if they did, you don't want to collaborate with them anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they stink.
Yeah. People who stink.
Stay away from them.
I'm going to jump around a little bit, because preparing for this, you and I had a quick call, and we were talking about people who have been influential, and maybe through a pivot or an attitude change, how permanent and durable.
They
lost their mojo. How durable is influence? What can lose it?
It's what's interesting to me is, now that we've been in this game for a while. So really, for me, I started producing content in earnest online and became a part of this digital world in 2009, right? Especially once the sales line came out in November 2009. And so I have seen people rise and fall, people that got a brand and they lost that brand, and they became very known and not known. And it's fascinating what happens. Like, you see these cycles.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I see most prominently is the reason why people lose influence is because they get annoyed with their story. They get tired of telling their story, and they say, I don't want to be boxed in to that thing. And so when you try to force feed what people know about you in a different direction, it can work against you. So let me give you an example, okay? I have been asked now, as I was today, I've been asked many, many times. I've been asked hundreds and hundreds of times, Marcus, will you tell how you started this? Tell us the pool guy story, Marcus. Tell us the pool guy. When anybody asks me to share the pool guy story, I'm not sitting there thinking to myself, here we freaking go again. Pool guy story. And I've never said to myself, I'm tired of being known as the pool guy. You see what I'm saying? And I definitely don't think Gary Vee is saying, stop calling me wine guy, right? No. Because he was a wine guy for a season. Now he became Gary Vaynerchuk, which became Gary V. Yeah, right? But the point is, I don't think Gary ever said, "No, you better not ask me the wine story, and you better not call me the wine guy," right? Because these things will happen on their own. But the
Yeah.
moment you say, I don't want to talk about social media, even though I've been talking about social media for 5 years. So I only want to talk about this other thing right now, but don't ask me about that. I
Yeah.
think you can really start to hurt your brand, and you can start to confuse your audience and limit the value you're giving to the world at that point.
Yeah, I want to come back to the. I think people losing their mojo is such an interesting topic, but I think there's an influencer marketing nugget in here because have you ever been asked to speak somewhere where someone gave you a topic and asked you to speak on something where it wasn't your greatest hits?
Okay. So I'm not sure. I'm curious to see where you're going with this question, because unlike most speakers, I really love speaking about things for which I am not extremely known for,
Mm-hmm.
or that are not in my quote wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say just stick with your thing. Well, if I get asked to, it means for some reason they trust me enough, especially if they're going to pay money, and I figure out what is the story behind it. I find, because I'm a natural procrastinator anyway, that, well, they must have seen something in me to
Mm.
get me or to ask me to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So this will force me to actually think about it, to plan something on it, and maybe, just maybe, I'll end up with a whole new set of thoughts and ideas,
Mm-hmm.
a new presentation, a new deck, whatever that thing is. I
Mm-hmm.
love to say yes. There's been a very few times I've said no. I do say no a lot to when people say to me, like I get those online requests where somebody's doing like these big, massive posts of thought leaders, and they said, "Hey, Marcus, we want to know what your thoughts on, PPC best practices this year." I'm like, PPC just ain't my jam,
I
and
know.
I'm not going to go learn about PPC so as to, like, I know enough about it, but it's not my jam.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, granted, I probably wouldn't give a conference on that, but I definitely would give a talk on culture, like I did last year a few times, even though I'd never spoken about culture before, and they were
Mm-hmm.
like world-class, effective talks.
That's great. Well, one of the things that I've noticed is that occasionally, like your example, people will say, "Hey, can you come do a thing, whether it's a presentation or an article on this topic that I'm less expert on or don't really know much about?" And I kind of think like, why wouldn't you want my best? This is a Scott Stratton thing. People say, "Can you give a presentation on this?" And he said, "Yes, I can do that, or I can give you my best presentation." So when I book speakers for our event, we have a monthly event at an annual conference. I tell people, bring your greatest hits. I don't care if you just gave that presentation somewhere else. My audience wasn't in that other presentation, but I want people to give their greatest hits. So I think there's a consideration where if you're working with an
This is
influencer,
Andy. This is really relevant, right? Because I've had a lot of people come up to me, like say before talk, and they'll say things like, "So you're going to tell the pool story today, right? The pool guy story. You're going to tell that today, right?" And I'm like, "Wait," and I'll even say to them, like, "You've heard it 100 times. I know, but I just want to hear it again." Right? It's no different. To
yeah,
your point, you want to hear, like, when I hear Neil Diamond, who is the greatest singer of all time, I want to hear Sweet
Sweet
Caroline, daggone
Caroline,
it. Okay? I want to hear Sweet Caroline, right?
bum,
I want to hear
bum,
America. Those two
bum.
songs, right? Those amazing songs. I want to hear them. There's many others that he could sing. I want to hear those two songs. Right? And so I used to worry about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now I consistently, because I've heard it so many times, person, like, I used to worry that if somebody heard me twice, they would be like, "Oh, gee, this is redundant." Now I realize almost every single time, like you, Andy, people say, "It's amazing how much more I learned the second time than the first."
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you heard Sweet Caroline?
Hundreds. And
That's
I'm
not a
hearing it in my
marketing
head right
presentation.
now.
I can hear it too. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, but so if there's a takeaway point from here for all of our attendees, the idea is this: you're working with an influencer, collaborate with them on the topic, ask them for what you think would be best for your audience, but and don't be afraid to ask them to go outside their comfort zone if you think they'd be really good on something like Marcus on culture. But what I often want when I'm working with someone, whether it's a guest post or a contributor quote or a presentation, is I want their best.
Their best stuff. Yep.
Their best stuff. Yeah. We just got a question in.
Yeah. Shall we read it? I'll read it out loud. It says, "I'm a single founder for 10." Oh, I saw it and it was gone.
I'm a single founder for 10 years now, and I want to finally ramp up marketing. I'm struggling to get started. Should I start reaching out to influencers directly? What do I need in place beforehand? It's a good one.
So what I'm curious is, are they trying to build their brand, or are they trying to build their company's brand? Right? Because there are, I think there's depending on what they're trying to build here, that's going to dictate this conversation.
Yeah.
And then my next question would be, so what specifically are you looking to get out of influencers that you yourself cannot do right now, or that you're trying to supplement right now, right? So in this case, they're trying to build the company brand. Do you have thoughts on this one, Andy?
Well, if it's a single founder, then that brand, the personal brand and the company brand, are probably pretty closely entwined.
Yeah, probably.
I would suggest that before, it's table stakes for everyone, polish your basic online personal brand through professional headshot, lovely profile on LinkedIn, right? Great description. Have a couple of strong pieces of writing examples somewhere online. Make sure the top post on your blog isn't like super old and irrelevant. Because as soon as you reach out to anybody, and this is true in people in sales, this is true in anybody, anywhere, as soon as you reach out, that person is going to look you up.
We're going to vet you, fool.
Going to judge you. Going to judge you in minutes,
right.
and so
seconds. Yep.
So do that first. But also, I think you were starting to say, like, what's the specific outcome you're hoping for, and be specific with people, or you'll waste their time.
Well, that's the thing, in other words, let's say I had a product, right? And I was really looking to get that product out there in a unique way. I might go after some influencers. To your point, I'd make sure that I had my stuff together, right? My value prop was clear for the product, and my personal brand and messaging was clear as well. That was clearly eating my own dog food before I approached them. And then when I did approach them, I would learn some very specific things about them that I would bring out in the approach. This is the part that everybody wants to skip. You are way, way better off sending out 5 personalized, video messages, let's say, to potential influencers than you are sending out 500 blanket emails that says, hey, Marcus, I know that was first name, but we're going to call it Marcus. Hey, first name, we've got this thing, and we would love for you to consider, we'd love to, you can, carry using your platform or whatever. Would you be interested? What are your rates? All these things are dumb. They don't make any sense. Andy, it's amazing. I know you've gotten so many of these. I've gotten so many of these. All I want to feel is that somebody actually knows me. Like, let's cut to the chase. I just want to feel you know something about me that you couldn't have figured out in the first 20 seconds of reading my bio, right? And so it's funny to me sometimes. It's like people will say to me, hey, I love that article that you wrote there, Marcus. And they think that's the thing that's going to get them in. But they didn't really say anything about said article. They just found the last article that I had published, and they said, okay, I'm going to use that as a thing that indicates that I know this fellow. You don't know me from Jack, right? Show me that you know me, and there's a very good chance, because it's amazing that, like, how quickly I'll turn somebody off if I feel like they really didn't invest. But man, if they invested just a little to understand me and my jam and what I'm talking about and how it relates to their stuff, their service, their product, I will absolutely take the time and listen to that person. But it's so rare. It's an anomaly when that happens.
So what do I need to do beforehand? Research the person you're reaching out to and do 10x on that outreach. I'll give you an example. So let's say I'm not on a webinar with Marcus right now, but I'm going to reach out to him. I'm going to make a video first. This will take me only minutes. Make a video first, and it's going to start like this. Oh, hold on. Let me turn down the music. I was just listening to some Neil Diamond. I'm going to, Marcus, 1 second. I'm going to get back to Sweet Caroline's on. Okay, got that muted. I've got a show coming up, and I learned so much from you last time. If you could give me just a quote, I would love to get an insight. They ask you so basically, as soon as Marcus sees this video from me, he's going to know that I'm paying attention, that I've been exposed to him. I'm showing respect. It's personalized. I'm upgrading the format of the outreach to video from text. Super important.
There's one other element to this, and this is what I teach in a lot of my communications workshops, especially to like sales teams or just presenters or speakers in general. The technique is what we call vanguarding, and vanguard is the first unit of the army that goes in back in the Roman days, right? And they go in the first one to solve the problem. So the greatest way to address a problem or concern is to address it before it becomes a problem or concern. And so if you're going to send out something that is at all risky, or you're worried that you're just going to just throw it away, you want to quickly say exactly what the person is thinking, right?
Mm.
So in other words, the person could be thinking, "Oh, here's another video. Here's just another video where you've sent this out to 1,000 people." So to Andy's point, he's showing that with the Sweet Caroline comment, right? But you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
now before you stop watching this, Marcus, I know you're probably thinking to yourself right now, okay, I bet you he sent out 100 of these a day and he doesn't know me from Adam. Let me just quickly explain the research that I've done on you and why I
Mm.
wanted to contact you, because I think this would have a significant amount of value for you. And then you go into it. But the key there is that I've stated out loud what the person is actually thinking. That is the vanguard. It allows me to nod my head and say,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's true. That's what I'm thinking. And it draws me in instead of pushing me away.
And there's more magic in the very next thing you said, which is because this is why.
Yes.
And anytime you expect anybody to do anything, online, offline, business, love, any part of your life, give them reasons, right? To give them reasons. So I love that. There's that going the extra mile thing is something else that you've seen done well or done badly. You mentioned you were part of an event recently.
Yeah, I loved this. So recently I did an event with Uber Flip. So Jay Bear had asked me, because he is one of the investors, and he's got a strong relationship with Uber Flip.
Mm-hmm.
Great company out of Canada, and they've got an event in Toronto called ConX. And so they asked me to come out. They asked me to do it for free. Now Jay asked a few of his friends to do it for free. Now, what they realize is, now Jay might be able to use his friend clout for one time, but it's going to be difficult to get those people out again and again and again,
Mm-hmm.
because this is my job. So if I'm going to Jay's event, if I'm going to Uber Flip for free, there's a very good chance that I'll have to say no to another event that would have paid. And so this is the sacrifice that we have to make, especially when this is your profession. And so I get there, right? And as soon as I walk into the speaker ready room, there's this huge poster on the wall that was professionally created. It looks like the cover of a music album, but it has my face on it, right? And I'm like, that is so cool. Then I look down at the table. The table has all of these cookies on it. Now the cookies are fine. I don't need cookies, but they're cool looking. But then I see, yes, my face is on the cookie. They had the icing technique where the icing had the imprinted version of my face on it. They had all this swag that they gave us. They gave us the best photos that I've ever received as a speaker. Came from ConX. Okay, so like easily one of my top 3 speaker photos of all time came from ConX. They gave me a great video of the event as well. And so I had all these things that I got from them. And I said, my gracious, I would come back to this thing again. And that's the thing. After the fact, I talked to the CEO of Uber Flip. Really, really, really great guy. And
Mm-hmm.
is Randy.
Randy Fresh,
And
yep.
yeah. And I said, Randy, this is the best event I've ever seen for speakers. He said, I'm so glad you mentioned that. We knew we couldn't pay you all what you normally get paid. And so we said, we have to be world class with our experience for them. And we have to do the little things that they're not used to that make them say, this is something I'll come back to again and again and again. And that's exactly what happened. And maybe all in, he spent an additional $500 to make me feel really special. But versus the $15,000,
right, value.
That's a big value for him, but it was still a huge value for me. That was smart. And I still remember Uber Flip for that.
Yeah, the photos and video, you could argue that's worth a lot of money.
It's worth a lot of money. Yeah.
So, but something that happened there is that you agreed and played the friend card, and so you showed up, but that it wasn't part of a pitch. It was going the extra mile, doing something unexpected after you're engaged as an influencer. So what does that tell us about engaging with influencers while you have their attention, while you're working on something?
Yeah, well, that's another thing. I'm always shocked that you go to these events, they ask you to speak for 45 minutes, but you might be there for a half a day or more, and they don't take more advantage of that time. So in other words, I love it when they said, "Hey, Marcus, when somebody says, would you be interested in," and it's a way for me to bring more value to the audience, and at the same time, more value can come back to me. So,
Sure.
I love saying things like, and some speakers don't do this, but I love doing this. I love saying, so, while I'm there, how about I speak to your 3 top clients? Now, why don't they ask me that themselves? Why don't they say, while you're here, would you like to have a 15-minute private conversation with 3 of our top clients? Because if you do consulting, which I do, right? This might be perfect for you. In those situations, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I'm all about it. Or, hey, we've got this. We would love to do a live interview while we're there to our Facebook group. Or, hey, we'd love to do some video recordings while we're there. Would you be interested in that? We're gonna make it as easy as possible on you. So now I'm like, okay, they're giving me all these opportunities to build my brand. And it's stuff like I can talk about this stuff all day. So it's not like, ooh, it's not. They're not asking me. I'm going to be here for the time no matter what, because my plane ride is until 7 o'clock tonight. I'd rather continue to build the brand in the process, and everybody wins.
Yeah.
But I don't think enough events or people think like that, and they'll think symbiotically. Is like, how can I kill multiple birds with one stone here and just get the most value for everybody during this time that we have together?
Yeah, I'll second that. There was a conversation I had recently. Someone asked me to speak somewhere, and it wasn't like a conference, so I can't really do that easily without a budget. So they asked me if I would speak, and I gave them a budget, and they said that was high for them. And then we started to talk about how to add more value. Oh, instead of just speaking at this thing, why don't we make a webinar beforehand and find out what people and answer questions? We'll turn those questions into an article where we publish the answers to the top questions and use the article to promote the event. Once the event, and then you turn the video, cut that up into social content to also be used to promote the event, tiny social media videos pulled out of the webinar as clips of us answering top questions. The audience had submitted the questions in advance. And then after it's live, that video became part of went into their content program as a way to keep their audience engaged even afterwards. So yeah, publishing more things, being more creative, extending the value from that beyond just the one event, it seems like a no-brainer.
Which I think aligns with this question we just got from somebody in the group here. The person says, we recently launched a podcast because we thought it would be a great way to connect with influencers and micro-influencers. What we have found is vendors want to speak on it and influencers don't. We do personalized outreach, like you're talking about, to the people we know about because we have been following. What are we missing? So here's the few questions that I would have to this person. So when they do the personalized outreach, what is the value prop that they're actually giving to the person? So is it, hey, you can be on my podcast? That's actually not very special, right? And one of the reasons it's not very special because we get a lot of podcast requests. And so if you get a request to be on a lot of podcasts, then all of a sudden I'm thinking all these things like, well, it's brand new. You probably have almost no audience. So this goes back to the issue of what's in it for me. Because keep in mind, a lot of people like myself, when I get asked for podcasts, I tell everybody, it's like, look, I only do podcasts 1 day a month. That's it. So like, this is my day. Actually, this is my day this month. So before this webinar, I was on a podcast because this is the day that I'm going to be talking to people.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure. You were the one, you the proud. Oh. No, I love Semrush. So the point is that we have to choose where are we going to get the most value from. If the only value is, I know a little bit about you, would you please come on? But there's really no audience. That's not going to be enough for most people. And so what truly is the value prop? I think there needs to be more than that. And I also think there's ways that we could go in, this particular company might go in and say, here's why we thought you would be great for this audience. And they really talk about it. In fact, we've heard you, as an influencer, we've heard you talking about these things recently, and we would love for you to come on and talk about that new thing. In fact, not only would we love to have you on the podcast, but we're going to take it, we're going to transcribe it, we're going to turn it into an article that highlights this thing that you're talking about. Now all of a sudden it's like, okay, so I'm getting a twofer here. right? You're going to do an article that is a full-blown article on this thing that I've been talking about. You're going to do a podcast that allows me to talk about this thing that I really care about, right? And maybe there's some other throw-in stuff that you could do, but I got a feeling they're not doing that yet. What say you, Andy?
Well, if so the request is denied. So what the person does, and everyone does, and you did, and I always do, and everyone who gets a request from anybody, they do a tiny, super fast ROI calculation in their mind. And so the way to get better results from that is to increase the R, like you just said, Marcus, right? I'm going to give you more value from this. You're going to get more exposure value. You're going to get more reach. We're going to make more formats out of this. Or to lower the I, ROI, right? So you can make it sound like an easier request. You know, we'd love to have you on the show.
This is a really great point. 25 minutes is a big difference than 60.
Yeah, we're going to have a quick conversation. There's going to be zero work for you involved. All I need you to do is click this Zoom link, and we're going to talk, and I'm going to ask you these questions or talk about whatever you want to promote, which, by the way, to your point, again, the what's the context for them? I can name at least 2 big name marketing influencers who are currently promoting books. They're saying yes to all kinds of stuff because they're trying to get exposure to something they're working on. So if you hit people in a cycle where
like
they're
Seth Godin. You've heard you've seen Seth on a bunch of podcasts recently. Seth don't like podcasts, man.
No,
he don't like to talk to anybody at this point. But he's actually saying yes right now because he just came out with his new marketing book, right? I mean, this is the door of opportunity is open with Seth.
Yeah. So make the R higher, make the I lower, or hit them at the right time.
Yeah, by the way, that was a really great point too, Andy, because I know there's been many times when I've had to tell people, like, I was wishy-washy on a podcast. And I was like, look, I appreciate the fact that you care. I'll give you 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And if they are willing to say, okay, that's fine. You know what? And maybe we'll do 20 minutes, and then I'll like them so much that next time I'll give them more than that. But it's like, there's been many, many times when I've sat there and said, I can't believe I have to be on this podcast next because the time that I need to fill it with other productive things. And I realize because my heart got in the way, I end up killing my own to-do list. The important and necessary list got killed because I was being Mr. Nice Guy. And you always want to be nice, and I lean towards being nice. So actually, I have a speaker manager because I want to say yes to every event. And she says, no, you actually have to pay, right? I mean, because otherwise I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll go there too. Sure. All of a sudden, I can't pay my electric bill, right? And so this is why I have somebody that manages that for me, and she's very, very good. But I think we need to do this. This company, I got a feeling, your point about ROI, that was really, really on the money.
I think that's it's how calls to action work on web pages. It's how subject lines work in email. You know, everything is everyone before they click is doing an ROI calculation.
And Snap Judge.
Yeah, so you can actually, if you want someone to click on your button, indicate value in the button or make the button sound easy, or whatever it is. So yeah, I think that's an important thing to consider, like in just human behavior, is that we all do an ROI calculation before anything. So that works for any request. I think that's a great question because it has so much to do with the pitch and how you can, for a lot of people, you just have to make it sound easy for them. I'll give you another example. So people sometimes reach out and say, I like that article about topic X. Andy, could you write an article for us? Damn it. Like, that's a lot of work. Like, it takes me like 8 hours to write a typical article. So my response is often, and I'm open to this for with anybody, email me questions. I'll email you back answers, and you'll have I'll email super detailed answers with images and bullet points and, screenshots. So I can't really sit down and write a lot of guest posts these days. I'm a little busy for that. But if people make it easy for me by sending me questions, now I'm just sending email.
And that's a great point. Just like I would rather do an interview than have to write anything for that point because it's just faster.
Yeah.
Right. Or send me the questions and I'll send you my verbal answers. And if you're willing to turn that into an article, you got a deal.
Yeah.
Make it
do
easy.
the editing.
Love
you
your
just
points.
press the record button. They would just have to press one button. So I think that's an opportunity to try to increase the conversion rate of influencer into collaborator reaching out for a podcast interview. Is to just lower the bar for them, or even put in a sentence like, I will make this as easy and no work a proposition as I can. Just tell me how. That's or if I want to sit down with someone, I just tell them. Or I have a monthly event, like I said, and I tell people, if you're in Chicago, tell me when you're here. I will change the date of my event to let you speak. You know, like they're like, okay, well, yeah, I got a layover. Maybe I'll come speak at your event because I'll have the Uber pick them up at the airport and bring them here. Like all they have to do. And well, I don't know if I want to do it. You know, presentations are hard work for me. Okay, I'll just interview you. You don't have to do a presentation. I got 2 tall chairs. I'm going to sit next to you. And all I want is your insights in the brains of my audience. So yeah, I work very hard to make the I lower. I can't make the R. I can make the R higher by reformatting content, repurposing, publishing in alternate versions. But I also try very hard when working with influencers to make that I as low as possible. The friend card. How important is what? I mean, you do favors for Jay. You're good friends with Ginny, mutual friend, close mutual friend.
Yeah, they're in Chicago. Yeah, I think the friend card is. I mean, friend card is an eternal principle of you know, the idea of relationships. They matter. It's crazy what we'll do for a friend that we would never do for somebody else, right? And so I'll go above and beyond for a lot of these people that I've met online. That since that time we've developed, you know, in life, real life relationships, and how they've opened some amazing doors for me. It's the doors that have been opened for me. Some people don't matter that much. Ultimately, it's just, you know, the merits of your labor. Nah, your circle really matters a lot. I mean, it just does. It really, really does, because you can be the smartest person in the room, but you might not be the best at getting your message out there, right? And so that one person facilitates that for you, and now all of a sudden, wow, the connection is made. And I've seen this so many times. And it's also something that, you know, it's just the one big drawback for me of living in a podunk, you know, town like I do, is the fact that for the most part, my intellectual peers don't live in my town. I have to drive to DC 3 hours north to be with those people that when I hang out with and go to events. So like living in a place like Chicago, where you have mega opportunities to be with other people that think like you, that are motivated and driven like you, that is really, really significant. And its importance can't be understated, because, you know, that it just matters so much.
Yeah, yeah, it does. You might be surprised though how Chicago, there's a lot of white space. There aren't. I mean, name a Chicago influencer like, you know, Ginny. But I go to Cleveland. I go to San Diego. You know, there's. I can name more influencers in
There's a
Minneapolis.
ton in San Diego.
Yeah.
There's a lot in Nashville, surprisingly, right? That's another one that there's a lot of people in Nashville.
The friendship thing, though, I think is really, if you stop hoping or asking for value from people and start giving value first. I'll tell you about an email I got that had an immediate conversion rate. Someone emailed me once and said, "What are you working on?" That it was like that mastermind question. Are you working on anything that I can help you promote? I stopped what I'm doing, paused on my work day. Like, yeah, I'm really trying to promote these 2 articles here. Great. I'm happy to help share them for you. That was it. Now it's a cognitive bias that Cialdini, reciprocity, right? What is that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm asking that person what I can do for them, because they gave without expectation. I mean, I knew what they were doing and they knew what they were doing, but it was truly an act of generosity. I mean, it was no follow up. It was just like, yeah, I'm emailing you because I want to promote something of yours, which is a funny thing. I ran a Twitter chat yesterday about how to get people to link to you. What do people link to? Popular topic. My answer was, if you want me to link to you, just send me a text message. As soon as I get it, I'm going to say, yes, I'm going to link to you right now. I'll stop what I'm doing, go into WordPress, add a link to their whatever, and then I'll buy them a beer. Why would I do that? Because it's Ian Clary and he's my friend and he's launching a new product. Like, I just can't wait to help the guy. So if you do the friendship thing well and care about people and give value before you ask for it, I think that's just, it's almost, there's so much pitching now that it's kind of unexpected, and it's a way to just really stand out.
Last thing I'll say about that, to your point, I'm not necessarily creative with sharing my friends' stuff, but the one thing that I do well is I notice sometimes when they're maybe something is either wrong in their life or off, or they need help, or they seem to be
Hmm.
struggling with something. When that happens, I am intentional about private contact,
Hmm.
be it a phone call or be it a message. Because I think some of the best stuff that we can do is when nobody sees it,
Yeah.
because then they know that it was of the purest intentions.
It's not content, but I did this for years. I do it less now, but for a long time I was in this cadence. I'd kind of set a goal of reaching out to, connecting with, and having a conversation with uh, one blogger every week or two. And these are people in like Australia and England, and like I
Yep.
don't care where they are, just smart people I want to learn from. And people would often say yes to that. It's just like, click this link, pick any time that works for you, whatever time zone, like here's Calendly or something. And it's a long list of people that I have stayed in touch with just from people I learned a lot from on those calls, and still feel grateful to. But it wasn't content and it wasn't public. We were just getting on Skype or Hangouts.
There's a lot of ways. It's easy time to do this. It's just we just got to be intentional about it. Go back to that one phrase. You got to be intentional and really effort this process of building relationships. And it's amazing what can happen in the long run.
Yeah, looks like we got one more. This might be the last question. We're winding down, but Marcus, you want to read that one?
Yeah, how can I find the right influencer for my company and measure the projected success of hiring the influencer? I'm talking about data that can persuade my company for hiring the influencer.
Hmm.
That is,
There's a lot there.
yeah, that is interesting. I, I'll tell you, here's my strategy. I've got two companies, got 125 employees right now, two very, very different companies. I've had a good bit of success in some ways hiring people that became influencers after the fact, especially by me giving them a platform. I've had a lot of success with this. What I have found is what really, really matters is that you go after the ones that are hungry, that believe in you, but also really want to build a platform, but they believe in you so much they're not looking just like stop in for a short stop and go. And so if you can find that person that is obsessed with personal development and is willing to just go
Mm-hmm.
and has that GSD that's really built in,
Mm-hmm.
then there is a very, very good chance that although they might not be a profound influencer right now, they become at least a micro influencer because you gave them the platform to do so, right? So as an example, if you take my swimming pool company, my videographer there, his name's Christian. He was a videographer turned now CMO of the company, but he is the face of River Pools now,
Hmm.
and he's now teaching video and marketing classes in different conferences already.
Hmm.
Gave him that platform. I have multiple people at my company Impact, one of which is in your town right there, Stephanie Bioki, Stephanie Castevens. Previously, she is tremendous, and I saw her, and she's been building her brand, and now runs our community at Impact, Impact Elite on
Oh,
Facebook.
I know
Right?
Stephanie. Yeah,
Yeah. Like she's
she's
amazing,
here.
and
Yeah,
she's a total baller in Chicago. Like she should be speaking at your
yeah,
event, for example. There's a connection, right? And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
but she
She
is
just got
amazing.
married. She's got a new name. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is an example of I go after those people. I don't really generally go after somebody that is already an influencer. That's not to say that you shouldn't, but I think that is arguably a more effective strategy.
Yeah, I think that this question sounds like it's right down the middle for what a lot of people think of as influencer marketing, which is um, finding and paying social media influencers to share stuff on social, hoping for more brand awareness, which is not according to a couple of research studies, including one from Tracker called Influence 2.0, I think it's called, is research studies. These are not the highest ROI parts of influencer marketing. Paid influencers, where you're measuring outcomes in social media metrics. So I'd be cautious about paying people for Instagram posts because I don't think that tends to, the ROI is not huge in that area. I think we all tend to overvalue the metrics we can see, and social media metrics are just so visible. But I'm grateful for the question. And Marcus, I am grateful for your time today.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, SEM Semrush.
We loved that you guys joined us. Again, huge thanks for Marcus. Give this guy some love online. He was generous with his time today. We got a chunk of his podcast day. I love that idea. You choose one day, budget your time. But join us next time. I think the next conversation is going to be with, we'll share the link, but we have an upcoming conversation with Lisa Jenkins, who is the editor of Social Media Examiner. That'll be a fun one. And Marcus, you're going to be in San Diego?
I will be in sunny San Diego. I'm going to be bringing my A game, throwing it down.
Yeah.
I'll be talking about video that day, I think.
Semrush will be there. I will be there. Marcus will be there. Maybe you guys can, if you happen to be at Social Media Marketing World, look for us or look for the Semrush boost, if nothing else. And again, this was the Influencer Marketing webinar from Semrush. Thanks to our host and thanks to you, Marcus.
Thank you, gang. See you now.
Take care. See you next time.